The coffee cup slipped from his tired hands and shattered across the cafe floor, the sharp sound cutting through the quiet morning like a wound reopening. Every head turned at once, and in that instant the single father standing there with his small daughter felt the familiar weight of judgment pressing down on his shoulders. His clothes were simple, his eyes carried the exhaustion of sleepless nights, and his daughter clung to his arm like the only safe place left in the world. The man who laughed first did it loudly, cruelly, the kind of laughter that spreads fast in crowded rooms. And what none of them knew, what the bully would learn only moments later, was that the quiet, humiliated father standing there had once survived missions most people could never even imagine. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and standing up for people who are trying their best in life, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel, Lonely Dad's Strong Heart. Stories like this deserve to be heard by more people who still believe in humanity. The man's name was Aaron, though most people in his life now only knew him as the quiet dad who came to the cafe every Tuesday morning with a little girl and a worn backpack. Years ago, Aaron had lived a completely different life, one filled with silence, discipline, and missions that never made headlines. But that life ended the day he held his newborn daughter for the first time and realized that surviving danger was one thing, but raising a child alone after losing the love of his life was another battle entirely. His wife had passed away during complications shortly after their daughter was born, leaving Aaron in a world that suddenly felt louder and emptier at the same time. The strength he once used in combat slowly transformed into something softer, something patient, something protective. That morning in the cafe had started like many others. Aaron had walked in with his daughter Lily, who was 5 years old and carried a small stuffed rabbit everywhere she went. The cafe smelled like fresh bread and roasted coffee beans, and sunlight filtered through the windows, creating a calm atmosphere that almost made life feel normal again. Lily loved that place because the owner sometimes gave her a cookie, and Aaron loved it because it was one of the few places where people didn't ask too many questions. But life has a way of testing people when they are already carrying too much. Aaron had barely slept the night before because Lily had a fever. He had stayed awake beside her bed, cooling her forehead with a damp cloth, whispering quiet reassurances until morning arrived. His eyes burned from exhaustion when they entered the cafe, and his hands were slightly unsteady as he carried their drinks. That was when the accident happened. The cup slipped, coffee spilled, ceramic shattered. For most people, it would have been a small mistake. But the man sitting near the center table turned it into something else entirely. He was loud, confident, and surrounded by a couple of friends who clearly enjoyed the show. His voice rose above the quiet murmurs of the cafe, pointing out how careless people shouldn't bring kids into public spaces if they couldn't even hold a cup straight. The laughter spread quickly, not from everyone, but enough to make the moment sting. Aaron didn't respond at first. He simply crouched down, picking up broken pieces carefully so Lily wouldn't get hurt. Inside, though, something old stirred. Not anger exactly, but a memory of who he had once been. Aaron had spent years training his mind to remain calm under pressure. In places far away from peaceful cafes, he had learned how to observe everything around him without reacting too quickly. He noticed the position of chairs, the exits, the tension in voices, the rhythm of movement. It was a habit he never completely lost. Still, none of that mattered anymore, because his life now was about Lily. And Lily was scared. She tightened her grip on his sleeve, her small voice trembling as she looked up at the room filled with strangers staring at them. Aaron felt a deep ache in his chest, stronger than any insult thrown his way. Humiliation he could handle, but seeing his daughter shrink in fear was something else. He stood up slowly after cleaning the floor, his movements calm and controlled. The bully, sensing an opportunity for more attention, leaned back in his chair and continued making comments loud enough for everyone to hear. The words were meant to provoke, to push, to turn the moment into entertainment. But something unexpected happened. Aaron didn't react the way people expected a humiliated man to react. Instead, he gently wiped Lily's cheeks, which had started to fill with tears. He knelt beside her and spoke softly, the kind of reassurance only a parent can give when a child feels the world is suddenly unkind. His calmness created an unusual silence in the cafe, the kind of silence that slowly makes people uncomfortable with what they had just witnessed. The bully, however, misread it. He stood up, walked closer, and tried to intimidate Aaron, perhaps expecting fear, maybe even hoping for an argument that would draw more attention. But when Aaron stood up fully, something changed in the air. It wasn't aggression, it was presence. There are moments when a person's past reveals itself not through words, but through posture, awareness, and the quiet strength in their eyes. Aaron's exhaustion was still there, but beneath it was something deeper, something steady. The bully noticed it too, though he didn't understand it yet. A few seconds passed, and then someone else in the cafe recognized Aaron. It was an older man sitting near the counter, someone who had been watching quietly the entire time. His expression shifted from curiosity to realization, as if a memory had suddenly resurfaced from years ago. He stood up slowly and approached Aaron, greeting him with the kind of respect usually reserved for someone who had once done something extraordinary. The bully looked confused. The cafe owner looked surprised. Aaron looked slightly uncomfortable, as if he preferred not to be recognized at all. But the truth had already begun to surface. Years ago, Aaron had served in one of the most elite and demanding military units in the world. His work had involved operations that required not only physical strength but also incredible mental endurance and discipline. He had been part of missions where failure meant lives lost and where teamwork and courage were the only things keeping people alive in the most dangerous situations imaginable. Yet none of that mattered to him now. Because the hardest mission he had ever faced wasn't overseas. It was learning how to be both mother and father to a little girl who depended on him for everything. The bully's confidence began to fade as the pieces slowly came together. The quiet father he had mocked was not weak, not careless, and certainly not someone who deserved ridicule. The room's atmosphere changed, the earlier laughter replaced by an uncomfortable awareness that something unfair had just happened. Aaron didn't use the moment to embarrass anyone. He didn't threaten. He didn't boast. Instead, he simply placed a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder and prepared to leave the cafe, as if the entire situation meant nothing compared to getting his daughter somewhere she felt safe again. But before he reached the door, something unexpected happened. The bully spoke again, though this time his voice was different, not loud, not mocking, just uncertain. It's strange how quickly people can change when they realize they have misjudged someone. The confidence that once fueled cruelty often disappears the moment respect enters the room. The bully had expected weakness and discovered quiet strength instead. Aaron paused for a moment, not out of anger but out of understanding. Because he knew something most people didn't. Pain often hides behind arrogance. And sometimes people act cruelly because they don't understand what others are carrying. He gave a small nod, not as forgiveness exactly, but as acknowledgement. Then he walked out of the cafe with Lily holding his hand, sunlight spilling across the street as if the world outside had been waiting patiently for them. The walk home was quiet at first. Lily looked up at her father with the kind of trust only children have when they believe their parent can face anything. Aaron knelt down beside her on the sidewalk, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. In that moment, all the past years, all the missions, all the struggles faded into the background. Because being strong wasn't about proving anything to strangers. It was about showing his daughter that kindness still mattered, even when the world didn't seem kind. Days later, something surprising happened. The cafe owner reached out to Aaron, asking if he would come back. Not because of what had happened, but because people in the cafe had started talking about that moment. Not the humiliation, but the way Aaron handled it. The calm, the patience, the dignity. Sometimes the quietest actions leave the deepest impression. When Aaron and Lily returned, the atmosphere felt different. Warmer, softer. A few people even smiled at Lily as she walked in holding her stuffed rabbit. The same cafe that had once echoed with laughter at their expense now felt like a place where kindness had quietly grown. And the bully. He came back too. Not to cause trouble, but to sit quietly at a table, occasionally glancing toward Aaron with something close to regret. Life has a way of teaching lessons in unexpected places, and sometimes those lessons begin with a broken coffee cup and a moment of silence. Before we reach the ending of this story, I want to ask you something special. Please take a second and comment the word respect if you believe people should never judge someone without knowing their story. Aaron's life didn't magically become easy after that day. Being a single father still meant long nights, financial struggles, and moments of overwhelming responsibility. But something inside him felt lighter. Not because he had proven anything, but because Lily had seen how strength and kindness can exist together. And that was the lesson he wanted her to grow up remembering. Years from now, Lily might not remember the exact details of that cafe morning. She might forget the shattered cup or the awkward silence that followed. But she would remember how her father stood tall without hurting anyone, how he protected her not with anger but with calm courage. And sometimes, that kind of strength changes more hearts than any confrontation ever could. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, share, and comment on this video. Your support helps stories like this reach people who might need a reminder that quiet strength still exists in the world.